Well, everyone, we're sitting here with Kaedy Molley, and we're going to talk about WSP, which is the
The
Warrior
warrior.
Scholar Project.
There you
Yep.
go.
And anyway, we're going to hear from her and all about that program. So, Katie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about WSP?
Yeah, so I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. My dad had been in the Navy for about 30 years, and 10 active, 20 reserve as an officer. So we moved around a little bit, but he was pretty good about giving us a stable household growing up, so primarily Alabama. I always knew I wanted to escape. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. From Alabama, that is.
Yeah.
So I ended up becoming a makeup artist. I did that for about 7 years. I moved to Denver, Colorado. I loved working in the beauty industry. It was very fun. The pay was not incredible, and neither were the benefits, but I made it work. Then 2008, the GFC, Great Financial Crisis, happened, and all sectors took a little hit there. So I lost my job doing, luxury beauty and being a regional artist, and I decided I needed to regroup. And one of the only options for someone who did not have education or money or great resources or skills outside of doing makeup was really to enlist in the military. So I walked into a recruiter's office after I moved back from Colorado and ended up in the Navy and did that from 2009 to 2019. Served as a cryptologic linguist, Arabic, and an air crewman. So had a really cool 10 years in the Navy before I got out. That's my quick bio, if you will.
Yeah. And obviously, in the veteran portion, we'll dive more into some of that. So you're getting out, and then looking here, you went to that's when you went to Syracuse University. Was it right after that?
So
Okay.
I was in about 2017. I still had two
Okay.
years left in my enlistment, and
Okay.
I had already re-enlisted once. And I was like, feel like I've reached my intellectual ceiling, if you will, in the military. I wanted a
Yes.
new challenge, a new adventure. I didn't want to go the officer route. I just knew I personally was kind of done with the military after what will have been almost 10 years by the end of it. At that point, it was 8. And by chance, I learned about the Warrior Scholar Project on Facebook. A fellow sailor was going to one of the programs. So I was like, what is this? An education transition program. So I checked it out online, found out it was free. All I had to do was get myself to one of the campuses for 1 week. I convinced the command to give me admin leave by somehow letting them think it would benefit them that I learned about how to use my GI Bill outside of service, but we'll talk about
I,
that another
I
time.
I would argue it did benefit them because it's created awareness for an awesome program. And so one hope with this podcast is obviously we want to help veterans, but I kind of look at it as a interesting way to inspire people that might want to be in the military. And I think a good thing is, hey, you don't just get dumped on the side of the road. I mean, technically you do, but you don't have to let yourself be dumped on the side of the road when you're done with
Yeah.
your service. There's lots of programs, including this one and many others, that you can take advantage of. So I'll just
Yeah.
throw that in there.
Sam, you could have been a lawyer. That was a great turning of the argument in one's favor. I love it.
I have been called the barracks lawyer on a number of
Ah,
occasions. If,
yes,
if the
yes.
Navy has that,
We would
I
have called
guess.
you a sea lawyer.
Okay, sea lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, sea
So those of you
lawyer.
listening that don't know what a barracks lawyer or sea lawyer is, it's obviously when you have a bunch of people thrown together, some of them are not as articulate as others. And so what ends up happening is people who are articulate, if they like somebody who's not, they'll kind of start speaking for them and then definitely get called out as the barracks lawyer. So I've
It's great.
definitely been that. Probably
It's
still
somewhat of
am.
a rite of passage for you, I would assume. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and then they're hooking you up with whatever it is they can do for you. So it's all just a melting pot of skill, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I did the same thing. I pulled the old convince them it's good for everyone and ended up spending this incredible life-changing week at Syracuse University doing one of the Warrior Scholar Project's academic boot camps. In a nutshell, you've got professors from the partner schools, and Syracuse was one of them at the time. Our partner schools can vary by the year. Currently, some of our partner schools for 2026 are going to include University of Chicago, Loyola Chicago, College of Charleston, Michigan State, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, got a bunch of really cool partner schools. And like I said, it varies every year, just incredible folks involved. But you have
Yeah.
professors from these schools and writing tutors and postdocs students that are helping with the STEM courses. And it's a week-long simulation of a finals week at one of these great schools. And you get to be surrounded by like-minded veterans. We do focus primarily on the enlisted veteran population, but we do take a look at all applications. Like if an officer has taken a break for a very long time from school and they want to maybe apply to a grad school, we'll consider those kinds of applications as well. So
Well, that kind
uh,
of makes sense.
it's really cool to be surrounded by like-minded veterans in this intellectually rigorous, engaging, curiosity-filled atmosphere and learning about your own academic potential.
Yeah. So I'm getting slightly ahead of myself. I guess the order of the questions doesn't matter. So obviously the website's probably the best place to go to for information.
Yeah, absolutely. You can
Okay.
go to warrior-scholar.org and you can read about us. So we're very transparent with everything. It is a nonprofit. So the veteran population we serve, it is of no cost to our participants to do our programming. They just have to get themselves to the different campuses. However, we also now offer on-demand programming and virtual boot camps for
Okay.
accommodating those who aren't able to travel. So we've got something for everyone who's interested in becoming a more empowered consumer of higher education or learning how to better utilize their GI Bill benefits or even just wants a little confidence boost as they take on their academic journey throughout their transition.
Awesome. And with that, I figure because you said it changes about yearly, probably on the website is somewhere easy to find the list of colleges that are currently participating in the program on their end.
Yes.
Okay.
And we also just opened our round of applications for the summer boot camp programming. So if anyone's listening that's really interested in just it's a low stakes week, right? You're not being graded, but you get to take courses with actual college professors. You get to be in a classroom simulating real life college experience. And we also talk about how to assimilate on campuses, how to learn about different parts of your identity, how to not really have like a chip on your shoulder, so to speak, about being a
That's
veteran,
good.
the non-traditional, yeah, student, which can be daunting. So anyone who's thinking about any of those things, I would encourage them to just go ahead and fill out the interest form or the application. And we want to use our organization to empower as many vets as possible to succeed in their higher ed goals.
Yeah. And something I can say for, I mean, I went to the military already with a degree. So what I can say is well, I'm like 37, I think, somewhere in there. But where I'm going with it is I have a degree, and by the time I was graduating, there were already one or two other degrees I wish I had worked toward and gotten. And at this point in life, there definitely, I think our generation went to college as the next step because our parents didn't and regretted it. And I think a lot of, at least what I've learned and other people I've talked to is I'm not going to force it on my kids because it's a lot of money, especially now. And unless you have an idea of what you want to do, it's not sort of the best use of resources. But then I would say if you've been in the military for a stint, you probably have some idea. And it sounds like this week is a really great week to do some exploring into different subjects and see would I like to devote roughly 4 years of my life to this and learning more about this? Is that kind of it's almost a trial for the veteran as much as seeing if they're accepted to the program?
Yeah, and I mean, getting accepted to the program isn't incredibly challenging as far as
Hmm.
our programming goes. It does require that you show us you are dedicated and you're taking this seriously, right? There
Yeah,
is an attrition rate to the application process only because we're trying to make sure we don't have people who say they're going to show up that aren't going to show up.
right.
Because these slots are very valuable, and there are professors and writing tutors and so many interested stakeholders, people who are donating money for this great organization, so many people that are putting in their care and their effort and their time to make sure our programming is as incredible as it is. And so we want to make sure it's going to truly deserving and hungry and responsible folks, people who just are really passionate and are going to show up. Those are the ones that are going to get accepted to their dream school and are going to succeed. And that's who we want in the classroom. But if you are scared, if you think you might be one of those people, we encourage you to apply and push yourself. I don't want anyone to feel discouraged from applying to our programs. If you're willing to show up, we're willing to be a resource for you and help you reach your potential.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a wealth of resources and you want to make sure it's properly applied, which I figure
Exactly.
more than half the people it'll be properly applied to. So
Yeah, and I
yeah,
want to touch on
definitely.
that we offer three specific kinds of programming for the boot camps. We do offer a STEM course, a core course, which is going to be your sort of humanities, paper writing, talking about critical thought texts. And then we also offer a business course. So if you think you want to do a STEM major, but you're scared, this would be a great trial for you to learn about physics and learn about the math required and learn about tackling a sort of big project when it comes to something STEM related. If you're terrible at writing and you want to get better, this is an incredible way to spend a week with amazing professors and writing tutors and start thinking about what it means to read a text critically and put it in conversation with other texts and get your own experiences into conversation with those texts. So it's really awesome for anyone. If you think you have an interest in something, maybe it will solidify that for you, or maybe you'll realize, actually, STEM major's not for me, turns out, but I learned it that week. So it's
Yeah,
valuable.
you get to know.
Yeah,
And as
for
we know
sure.
from G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle.
Yes, excellent reference.
Thank you. So, going from there then, so we've got the week-long program, and so then if you're accepted, how does the rest of your time as a part of WSP work, and how does it look?
Yeah, I love this question. So once you're accepted into a course, you'll apply with like three preference schools, depending on which our partner schools are. You'll say, I want to go to this summer program, or this summer program, and that's going to be locationally dependent, how many slots are available, which type of program you want to go to, whether it's STEM or business, et cetera. There's a lot of, factors that go into getting you on a campus. But I want to reiterate that it doesn't matter if you go to the Harvard campus for your experience or the University of Chicago for your experience. That's not going to guarantee you getting into those schools. Literally, these are campus partners. You're going to have the same incredible experience no matter which campus you end up on. It's just really more important that you choose according to like the STEM programming. Or if you are considering applying to that school, of course, it's a good idea to try to attend at that campus. But no matter which course you end up going to locationally, you're going to get the same incredible week of programming that you would anywhere else. So once you're admitted and you get sent, we say you are going to be able to do this course with us, our program, we'll let you know which campus and it'll be up to you to get yourself there. But that week we put you up in the dorms, we feed you in the dining halls. And I will say these dining halls are getting better and better. It's incredible. Much better than most of the chow halls I've eaten in. Yeah, it's amazing. Some of the food is incredible.
What's the
And
best one? I don't mean to
ooh,
cut you
I
off.
haven't been to all of them personally. I
So what's
will
your favorite so
say,
far?
I will say that, like what we don't have them as a partner school this year, but the dining halls at Syracuse were incredible. University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, UIUC, out in Champaign or Urbana, I think it's called. I always say it wrong. They have got incredible food, and I've heard good things about a lot of the other schools as well. But I'd love to get to all of them and try them out eventually. So yeah, once you get in, you're put up in the dorms, you have your own room, and we feed you in the dining halls, and you get to do campus tours, you get to meet different admissions office folks. It's a really comprehensive, amazing week. But then once you complete our programming, I think is where this lifelong gift of Warrior Scholar Project comes in because you become an alum. And once you become part of our alumni community, you are in it for life and you're added to Slack channels and Facebook and LinkedIn. And we reach out to you and we organize cool events and gatherings. Once you are part of the alumni community, it's an incredible gift that keeps on giving. If you're interested in going to a certain school, a part of the alumni community at Warrior Scholar Project is what inevitably led me to want to be involved with being on the staff full time. And I pivoted from private equity to come be on the central staff at Warrior
Wow.
Scholar Project because I really believe in our mission. I'm an alumna of our programming, I'm a product of it. I ended up getting accepted to the University of Chicago as their first woman in their undergrad veteran cohort of veterans. So there
Okay.
were 14 of us admitted in 2019 as a cohort of undergrad veterans. I was the only woman that year, and that was their first ever year. It was incredible. Graduated in 2023, and so I don't think that ever would have happened if I hadn't done that one week of Warrior Scholar Project. So I'm
That's
passionate about
awesome.
it. I'm a product of it. And then after I was even in school and I had done the program, I went back to be a fellow. So this is another cool part of our program is we offer summer fellow jobs where if you've gone through the program as a participant, once you're an alum, you can apply to be a summer fellow. So whether you've gotten started on your higher ed journey or you've finished it or whatever, you can apply to pay it forward and travel to the different campuses with a team of other fellows and help teach portions of the course.
Oh,
It's
that's
pretty
awesome.
amazing. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
So, what is some advice you would give to a veteran service member that's wanting to start out in the pro, other than the advice you just gave of, hey, check it out if you're thinking about it, but from there, what's some of the advice you would give? And you're not stuck with just one thing.
I love this question because you're giving me a broad space to fill in the gaps because I think there's so many different ways one could fill their time and put their efforts towards things to prepare. I think
Let's have them.
if you're gonna do a humanities or a core related course, I would recommend reading. Just start reading. Read articles about democracy. Read a really old book by a crusty old dude like Alexis de Tocqueville because you'll read some of that in our core course. Just start reading, get hungry, and start thinking about what you're reading. And it doesn't have to be, you could even read an article written about, the young Blackhawks team, NHL. I don't know if you're into NHL. I'm a huge Blackhawks fan, but there's really cool articles being written by sports writers every week based on what happened in the game or what this player did, and even reading things like that, you're going to be critically engaging with those materials, thinking about how you would have viewed that experience or this moment and what this writer must have been thinking when they brought up that point. Just think critically about whatever you're reading. If you're interested in STEM, start reading about STEM related things. Just read about physics. Go online and just ask Chat GPT to bring up a recent physics or STEM related article and read it and think about it and see if it resonates with you. I think just being curious is my number one recommendation to veterans because as an enlisted veteran in particular, I mean, I could make an argument that all veterans are somewhat told to toe a line, right? We are supposed to operate within certain boundaries of kind of thinking and innovating. We have caps to that.
Yeah.
So now that you're going to be transitioning out, you're going to be able to think outside of those limitations. You're going to be able to break through those. And really, the sky is the limit. There's no ceiling except the one you set for yourself. So being curious can lead you to incredible places. I think curiosity and confidence are huge, and confidence is something we can help give you at Warrior Scholar Project. But I think if you just have the belief in yourself that you're capable of whatever it is your heart is calling for, then you can do it. It's just a matter of seeking out resources to help you do it, people that are willing to support you, and thinking about the best way for you to approach it. And we're happy to help you in every step of the way because our alumni group, like I said, our alumni community is full of folks willing to help and they've got experience in their transitions. They're working in various fields. In fact, over the next few weeks, we're going to have a bunch of cool panels that Warrior Scholar Project is putting on for our alumni specifically with different folks from different industries. So you can explore through these virtual panels different types of careers you're considering. So that's just one example of cool programs we offer for our alumni community. So I think being curious, asking questions, just reading, taking in information are all great ways to prepare yourself to succeed in the classroom, if you will.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic, and that's excellent advice. That doesn't even just apply to WSP, but just higher education or even just transitioning in general. Definitely be curious. There are a lot of jobs out there, a lot of different avenues that you can go down. Sometimes the title's the same, but the industry is different. I'm lucky I get to work in an industry where I interact with other industries, so I see. I mean, like for instance, I get to go into factories, and so you could have a boring item, like I say, a Kleenex box that just sits there, but to see the factory where it's made is interesting. But there's,
Yeah.
something like sales, something like writing, those jobs are everywhere and are really fascinating places too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times in the military, whatever job and we call it like a rating or an MOS or whatever in the enlisted ranks. whatever job you end up doing is oftentimes siloed. And so you're not always aware of
Yeah.
the tons of other types of jobs out there. When I came to be an instructor up at Great Lakes, I left my CT, cryptologic information dominance community to
Hmm.
go kind of do something a little different. And I was one of they were kind of like, what are you doing here? You're a CT. And I was like, well, I wanted to come be an instructor. And this was Chicago and it was a neat opportunity. And I had reached my op tempo limits for deployment. And I got to learn about all these other types of jobs in the Navy that I hadn't encountered. And I thought that
Yeah.
was really cool. So I just think it's nice to be reminded as a veteran that there's lots of different types of jobs out there. You don't have to just do what you were doing in the military. There's nothing wrong with doing what you did in the military. If you want to, make money as a linguist in the contracting world, absolutely. If you want to be a mechanic, there are so many great technically specific jobs out there that translate. But if you were a mechanic and you want to be something else when you transition, then using your GI Bill is the way to do it. You can use
Yeah.
your GI Bill. A lot of schools will supplement, and you can get a free education for your at an incredible school. And you can go into whatever career field you want. For example, I was a linguist, but I went into private equity. I know lots of guys who have become investment bankers, folks who work in marketing, the medical field, and they didn't do anything related to that in the military. So it's a really cool way for you to take a pivot if that's something you've been thinking about. Just don't be scared. We'll help you to use your GI Bill to pivot however you like.
I love that you brought up the GI Bill because I was going to go there as well. How does this work in conjunction with the GI Bill or even tuition assistance?
Yeah,
How
so
does
this
it all kind of
doesn't
combine?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're sort of a separate thing from those because we don't charge any kind of tuition. This is not You're not getting a degree at the end of this week, right? It's really like a crash course for you so you can go get the degree you want. The
Okay.
benefit you do get is you get to talk to an admissions officer at whatever campus you're at, and they explain to you how admissions processes work, what a typical application requires, types of things they look at. They talk about numbers of admissions. So you get really an inside look from someone from the admissions office at whatever school you're at that tells you a little bit more about what the application process will look like as you're applying to colleges. So that's huge. And another thing I said we're giving you is the confidence to like do the practice classroom experience
Yeah.
before you just like head into school as a non-traditional veteran student and feel like you're really isolated. And that third important thing is that sense of community so that you understand.
Hmm.
We teach during that week, not just academic stuff. We also do, like I talked about, campus assimilation, right? Exploring identity, time management, resource use. Like we really comprehensively give you this college life skills crash course, if you will, um, on how to really succeed on campus. So it's a really good practice opportunity and it'll help you get confidence and be prepared. So we don't need the GI Bill. But we do talk about the GI Bill as well during the
Okay.
program so that
To
you
get some
become a little
education.
bit, yeah, so you're a little bit better informed about this is how it works. Here's what the Yellow Ribbon program is. And you'll have to talk to each school depending on how much they participate in Yellow Ribbon. Some schools have limits and others don't. I went to the University of Chicago for free. And that school at the time cost about 80 grand a year.
Yeah.
The GI Bill only covers roughly a fourth of that a year. And so the rest was Chapter 33 benefits and Yellow Ribbon program and then school related funding. So pretty
Okay.
awesome to have that opportunity. And that's another thing we tell our participants when they're applying to colleges is don't just go to a school because it's prestigious and you think it would be cool to go there. There's so many things to look at when you're choosing an institution of higher education. You want to look at location, you want to look at extra costs, you want to look at how much of the GI Bill they're using. Some institutions will give veterans a full ride and you don't even need your GI Bill. You can save it for grad school. It's just going to matter what program you want to study, how many years you want to spend in school, because not all of them are just like, yay, we want veterans. And not all of them are going to give you 2 years of credits just because you were in the military. Some of them are very specific about transfer credits. So some places you'll be a first year student, others you'll be a second year, others you'll enter as a third. It's just going to depend on your individual needs and wants and desires when it comes to all those different things. And GI Bill is a huge one. So if you don't think you're going to get enough assistance from a school, you might want to look at other schools that provide more in conjunction with your GI Bill stipends.
Okay. And so just to be clear, because maybe I'm missing it. So the trying to get in the program, you apply and then you're accepted to the week-long program, and then the
Mhm.
week-long program prepares you for the all the college stuff.
Exactly. We
Okay,
are
all right.
just a college prep boot camp in a
Yeah.
nutshell.
But I mean, there's a lot of things helping with college and schools. I'm sure there's others, but this is the first one I've heard of that does something like this. Like in my mind, I kind of equate it to like when you go to those kind of like business boot camps where it's like, here's what you're gonna wear in an interview, here's what you're gonna say, here's what you're gonna be asked. So, but even more so, this really seems to prepare people for all the aspects of college, not just classes. Because obviously, you go to orientation, they talk some, and but navigating it, maybe that's the best way to say it. And really
Yes.
navigating the system is, and that especially for people that don't really have a frame of reference, I think this is one of the most valuable tools that they can have when they're transitioning out.
Exactly. It's so comprehensive. I do like to think of it as like a mini college life skills course because you're learning the academic portion, you're learning the critical thought portion, you're learning the classroom collaboration portion, you're learning about different parts of your identity, you're learning about what it might feel like to be a non-traditional student, about how to take advantage of office hours, the admissions process, different types of major. Like it's really comprehensive and amazing, and so much better than just Googling what to expect at
Oh
college
yeah.
as a veteran, because you get to try it out for a week and talk to the other veterans in your cohort, many of whom will be lifelong friends. It's just, it's incredible. I can't
Wait,
speak highly enough of how it prepared me for a much better and more successful higher education journey than I ever would have imagined for myself.
yeah, when I think the internet can be a real risky place to go for advice like that because like Google AI pulls stuff from wherever and it's not always factual. And then, I mean, please nobody ever go to Reddit for any advice on anything.
If you want to go
Um,
to Reddit to become really jaded and cynical, do it. That's
yes,
a great
that's
place to do
exactly
that.
that's like where they all live.
If you want
But
to learn
yeah,
how to become a troll, like, yeah, an online
yeah.
troll, go to Reddit. They'll teach you.
Yeah, this sounds like you said, very comprehensive and really covers everything. Because yeah, I think that's one of the most daunting things about. Now, I'm not speaking from experience, fortunately and unfortunately, I guess. Um, but people transitioning out, it seems like, if you know, most of your career, you've been given some form of a guide. Now, like depending on how good your leadership was, some people probably got better than others, but you got some form of it. And so then to just be like, well, you create your own mission, you create your own intelligence, you create your own action. And it's like, well, I've never done all that before. So,
Yeah, I love the point you just brought up. We're so well indoctrinated into the military, right?
yeah,
Like you go to boot camp or OCS or you do an ROTC program to be fully indoctrinated into military life and way of being. It sets you up for success in service. But they don't have anything that indoctrinates you back into the civilian world afterward.
right.
That doesn't
Yeah.
exist. We've got these transition assistance programs courses, and the folks working in those are very well intentioned and they, their hearts are wanting to help vets, but they're not always given the best resources. They also have boundaries they have to operate within based on Department of Defense contracts and age-old agreements and things like that. And so it's really great that we're able to offer, at least in this one more niche space of higher education, this fully comprehensive transition assistance thing for you. If you are thinking about higher ed, this program is the TAPS you always dreamed of having, if you will. But it's
Oh,
higher
yeah.
ed specific, and we do touch on many other things, which can bleed over into career transitions, right? And community building and sense of purpose, etc. But it's really beautiful to be able to work on, for an organization and be a product of an organization that really genuinely has been thoughtful about how to create the most useful resources and experiential learning kind of tools for you to succeed once you're out of the military.
Yeah. Well, and something we talked about, and we've hit a fair amount, and we're not done hitting on it, is the mental health stuff.
Hmm.
And yeah, talking about indoctrination and understanding how to re be indoctrinated back out of it or indoctrinated into kind of civilian society. One thing we noticed is some of the like just the veteran support groups, or like a good example would be Monkey Brain Art was one we did. And what I
Oh,
kind
I
of
love that
realized in
one.
that it's a neat one. It's local to Kansas City, where Nick's from and I am. But I mean, it'd be cool if there were chapters in other cities too. And I don't know to what extent they reach beyond Kansas City. I don't remember if we talked about it, but what I realized about groups like that, whether it's the VFW or depending on what it's like in your area, or yeah, pick a name. But basically, what we all make friends in the military just because we're in the same place, we're in the same uniform. Like
Yes.
we were all told, be here at 07. And so then we're just going to make your friends because that's who you're around. And then especially, same thing kind of happens in school. You're told to be here at a time and those are the people you're with. So, but so then for someone to just get out of the military, and especially if they move to a new city or a city they're not familiar with, they don't really know anybody. And that cannot be helpful with the mental health. But definitely part of the mental health is transitioning not just mentally, but physically and then educationally. And so this seems like another piece of that puzzle that fits into mental health because they're having a route to be successful and do what they want to do, which is more or less how I define success. Uh, and so, yeah, just the way this fits in a similar capacity of kind of guiding you into, okay, here's your next thing, show up here at this time, and we're gonna give you all this information and make you more capable of being able to make your next move however you decide.
Yeah, this is another great point you make. Another great thing you point out is that nobody is giving you directions on how to feel like you belong when you get out of the military.
Hmm.
That sense of
Yeah,
belonging and purpose and community. Like there's a different kind of bonding that occurs in spaces in the civilian world than, like you just pointed out, are occurring in veteran spaces. But I've found moments where being a veteran has enabled some of those. And when I think back to what has enabled me to be so good at connecting with people that are in far, like I'm talking about our intersectional identities couldn't be further away from one another, but we
yeah,
still have this magical connection. And I think about what has enabled me to be so good at that. And I would have to say it's that week I spent at Warrior Scholar Project. At the time, this portion of the course was called degreening. It's not called that anymore. But I will remember it as that because the law of primacy, the
yeah,
first way I learned it was called degreening.
yeah,
But it was this concept of when you go to college, it's up to you to remove these automatic sorting categories you put yourself in. And one of them is I'm a veteran and you're not. It's veteran and not veteran. And yes, that's a very real thing. Like, yes, you served, and yes, most of the normal or average age students for their peer group on campuses are not veterans. But that doesn't mean it should cause this division. And it actually can
yeah,
be an opportunity to open up these conversational bridges, if you will, a way to connect with people. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to be a veteran on campus. I found that I had to sort of present that because I was the oldest undergrad at the University of Chicago at the time for the 4 years I was there.
hmm
So imagine you're a first year student, and this is one of the
yeah,
top schools in the world, and you look
yeah,
next to you, and there's like a 36-year-old woman, and you're like, what's this lady doing here? So I found it helped me to be like, in case you're wondering why I'm 36, it's because I'm a veteran. And it would give everyone a little moment to sort of laugh and maybe like, uh-oh. And for me, it gave a great opportunity to create conversations like, yeah, but I didn't go to prep school. What was that like? Like, what was it like freaking out over your SATs? Like talk to me about that. It really creates a great opportunity to build a mutual curiosity about each other's differences as opposed to making them things that make you feel isolated. So
Yeah.
age is one of the things veterans will face, veteran status. Maybe you're a first gen student. Maybe you come from a rural area. Maybe you come from an inner city struggle. There's so many different types of identities and socioeconomic backgrounds, et cetera, that can play into who we are and our life experiences. But college campuses are one of the best freaking places ever to talk about that and connect with people across those seeming divides and bridge those gaps. And so when I really think back on the week I spent at Warrior Scholar Project in 2017, that de-greening lesson was so cool for me. And I ended up winning awards on campus for outstanding participation in a course. And my teachers would tell me that like I wasn't in class one day and the class seemed lackluster and they were like, "What's up with you guys?" And my fellow students would be like, "Katie's not here." And it's because I didn't show up and be like, "I'm a veteran, none of you know what you're talking about." I showed up like, "Wow, that's super interesting. What made you think of that? Or what made you learn?" And if there was something I disagreed with, I would say, "That's a really great point. If I may add some more color to that. From my experience, it was this,
Yeah.
but I'm open to that being debated. I'm open to this rigorous intellectual discussion that's going to make us come to new heights of enlightenment as opposed to
Yeah.
shutting each other off." So I think for me that was massive and it really made me belong more on campus. I was able to join clubs and assimilate really quickly, even though I was a very different, female veteran, older student, right, who lived off
Hmm.
campus and was married and whatever. I was able, like, some of my best friends to this day that have come and visited me this summer are my undergrad kid friends that I just really
Yeah.
bonded with. And I joined different clubs and I just felt really great in spaces because I was curious about others and I let them be curious about me and I wasn't guarded. And I think that's a cool thing. And we don't give you those directions verbatim in our courses.
Right.
That's what I took from it. But we do touch upon like college is a great time to explore other aspects of your identity and don't just hold a chip on your shoulder about being a veteran.
Yeah.
Hold that space for yourself, but explore other parts of yourself. And other people are allowed to have opinions on war, even if they haven't been to war. I think that's a really
Right.
important thing to remember too.
Yeah, I think so much is about growth and understanding and hearing other views that, yeah, you can, and probably in somewhat, you were bringing parts of the conversation up, not even from a veteran standpoint, but just because you were older and had experienced more life. I mean, it
Yeah.
just, even if you suck at life, you're going to have experiences that somebody can pull from, whether you killed it at life or somewhere in between. And so I can definitely see, and you seem genuinely curious. You probably wanted to grow. So, yeah, I'm very much an opportunist. I'm always looking for an opportunity to learn, to grow, improve something that I'm doing. Because there's two ways you can not suck. You can either argue with everybody and insist you don't suck when you do, or you can
I
say,
promise I don't suck, but you guys do.
yeah, or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
could be like, I'm gonna ask more questions and learn, and then I'll
Yeah.
not suck at this anymore. And so, yeah, so many attributes to it, for sure. And then,
Yeah, and if I may interject real quick, like
oh,
the,
please,
the vets I've known and was on campus with that ended up feeling really lonely and being very unhappy were the ones that kind of had that number one approach, right? Like you haven't been in my shoes, so you can't relate. And
yeah,
there's this forgetting that also we haven't been in their shoes. Like us as the veteran
yeah,
haven't been in the non-veteran student shoes. Like you got into the same school as them, but through very different life paths. And
yeah,
I think it's just really a bummer to forget about that and then feel like you're so isolated and misunderstood, but you can't, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So
right.
I hope that the veterans who are out there pursuing higher ed open themselves up to growth and discomfort. You got through a ton of growth and discomfort in the military. There's different types of it, and don't alienate yourself by putting that energy of like no one will understand me out there. Like maybe someone will, just give them a chance.
I think you bring up a really good point about we don't necessarily understand that side of it either.
Yeah.
It's not just because one thing I notice sometimes it's like some military people will be talking, some like wild deployment story comes up, and then like, but I think the best way to describe it is ambivalence. The civilian just has ambivalence. Like they don't know how to respond. Like, well, they seem to be laughing about this crazy, terrible thing that happened, which part of it too is just and some you don't have to be in the military to have a dark sense of humor, but you kind of have to have a dark sense of humor to get through some of the stuff. But yeah, it's like, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be shocked by the story or laugh at it with them, or and
Yeah,
so
like our gallows humor and our gross
yeah,
bodily references to things, like we refer to guts as like spaghetti, and like that's shocking. Um,
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, but to us it's how you get through it is with the sense of humor, and
yeah.
by taking away some of the heaviness of it because it is part of your everyday life.
And it just gets so normal too. And then we
Yeah.
forget it's not normal for other people. So that the idea of the assimilation and remembering like, yeah, like your veteran history contributes to your experience. It can contribute to others, but it's not who you are. And that's something we actually talked about with Matt Eversman on the podcast. He was in the Battle of Mogadishu, and he definitely we talked about you could do some awesome stuff in the military, or even if you're not in the military, you can do some awesome stuff. Like if you're star quarterback player in high school, but it's like you have to do some more awesome things. You don't just like do
Yeah.
this one thing and then you're done. It's like, okay, but build that resume. Was this, now is this, was this, and not living in the past. Like it's a great point to hit on for sure.
You can, and I think a nice, like, internet related way to think of it is like, what's my version 2.0? What's my
Oh
version
yeah.
3.0?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the next, like, I was the beta version last year. We were testing that out. What's the next version of me that is going to become and is going to do their best at this thing that they become? I think it's a bummer when people stop wanting to grow and evolve because it goes
Hmm.
against our very existence. But by fact of aging and changing, we are
Yeah.
going to never be the same. And so I think we might as well make the most of it, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I can see also being an open individual as a veteran in a scenario like that, like I'd say most of us believe, at least in some ways, if not many, that you benefited from your military experience. So being able to answer questions and share with somebody, because they might graduate or decide college isn't for them and not graduate, and then decide they want to be in the military and having being like, oh, I remember this person and they were so great, or Katie was in my class and she seemed really open-minded and very knowledgeable. And so I'd like to go down some of that path as well as far as the military. And so it's great kind of advocacy. Like I said, I'm an opportunist, almost for a good opportunity to grow and help, not for anything else.
Yeah, and I did have a few of the younger kids on campus that were like, I've been thinking about the military. Can I ask you some questions about it? I'm like, absolutely. I'm not going to convince you or one way or another,
Yeah.
but I will share my experiences with you and I will tell you what I think was so valuable from it and some of the things that maybe I spent more time thinking about, like moral implications were not something I would think about every day in the military, but as I continued on my higher education path, I considered that a lot more, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it was great to be able to share those experiences while helping other young people have more informed decisions about their future. So that's a really cool part of it, right? Like you just pointed out, and maybe there will be some incredible military careers as a result of these different veterans out here in the civilian world interacting with people they might not have otherwise in a very open, honest, and authentic way.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Real
Liberating.
quick, based on something you had mentioned, was
Yeah.
kind of the language that veterans use that might be shocking to civilians. I
Right.
ended up taking a course at the University of Chicago called Trauma, Vulnerability, and the Martial Body, and it was about the embodiment of war. And it was this one, like it was a postdoc student who had created this course, and it was part of
Hmm.
the comparative human development, which is department, which is a interdisciplinary combination of sociology, anthropology, and psychology. So this incredible department, interdisciplinary, really cool.
Hmm.
And I'm the only veteran in this course, and there's like 20 something students in this class. And it was one of those tight seminars, and we read all these different texts about things related to war and things that I never would have thought were related to war but had so many things in common. And one of the texts we read was specifically talking about the types of language that veterans use to kind of disassociate from the severity and seriousness, and kind of like profundity, if you will, of some of the everyday things that are part of service. And
Hmm.
it was really fascinating to talk to the civilian students and be like, yeah, what do you think about when you read that we talk about seeing our friends' guts as like spaghetti, right? Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean to you? And reading anthropologist takes on it. It was just really eye-opening and interesting, and it made for some really interesting conversations, things I just couldn't wait to read more. There were moments during that course where I would go home and read a text and just start crying because something had resonated with me in a cathartic way.
Hmm.
And these are people who didn't go to war, but anthropologists who have studied it through ethnography and whatever. And I just thought, wow, there are some things here that I never really had been able to place my finger on that they did it and they did it so beautifully and it has touched
Yeah.
in some way. So I think that's another beautiful part of of higher education is being exposed to these texts and ideas and theories and people's own little weird curiosities where they want to dissect a subject for 2 years and then you read about it and you're like, whoa, like my mind is blown and this is a thing that directly relates to my life and I had never even thought of that. So I thought that was an incredible course and a really cool experience that I just will always remember from higher ed fondly. And I became friends with the teacher in that class. Like what an incredible human. And I made some really great classmate friends from that class. Like one of them was here a month ago. I hadn't seen her since we graduated, but she was like, I'm coming to town, let's get coffee. And we talked about how great that class was. And so I think a lot of veterans, if they approach higher education the way we've been talking about, and they are just willing to give themselves a try, they can have similar stories like this. Just really cool courses they took, really great friendships they made. It's just awesome and really
Yeah.
gives you that sense of belonging like I had in the military at least.
Yeah, and I can definitely see when you experience a foreign culture through the eyes of the military, whether it's combat deployment or not, whatever, you're stationed in Italy, whatever it might be. I could definitely see how it's one side of, the six-sided brick of like, not even a coin, but then you go look it through the eyes of anthropology or the eyes of international business. You're getting more pictures and information on the different aspects to it because obviously nothing truly is simple. It can be simplified, but nothing's simple. So get
Yeah.
it, and then when you're pursuing that higher education, you've already had a glimpse of it from this other point of view, and you can blend that in with what you're learning. But what is funny and came to mind when you were talking about the just the lingo we use and we're used to using is my mother-in-law made an observation that so my father-in-law built houses for 12 years and he always been kind of on the construction side of things. So, where someone might say, this needs to be straightened up or like, son, you need to straighten up. Yeah, he'll say something like plumb. That's when things are correctly parallel,
Yeah.
basically. And so he'll say plumb, but then she'll hear me say things that are definitely army terms. There's like, I'm trying to his example, but like the example for me was like I was talking about something, not even a human or something, but I was like, yeah, I think that's blood out. Like, like, and she was like, and she not offended at all, but it was her funny observation of like, he talks one way because of his background, he talks another way because of his background, she talks that way. So it is funny the lexicon that you don't even realize you develop.
Yeah, like I found myself saying it, like similarly, like you're nuking this. You are nuking this.
Yeah.
And I realized like to me it makes sense. Like it's always been to me
Yeah.
part of my vocabulary seemingly, even though that's not true at all. But when I say to someone like, dude, you're overdoing it, you're nuking it, they kind of are like, what do you mean I'm nuking it? And I'm like, you're like overthinking it. So then I remember like that's a very Navy specific term because a nuke
Yeah.
engineer in the Navy is someone known for being overly analytical, like annoyingly
Yeah.
analytical and like wants to know every little detail, right? And so we call them nukes. And so the term came around like you're
That's
nuking
so
it
funny.
if you overthink it. So I would be in a classroom like trying to explain something in a group project. I'd be like, no, I think we're just nuking it. And there's this moment of like, what are we talking about? But at
Which
the
is,
same time, like young people have lingo, like what is like on God and like,
I
you're
can't even keep track.
like
My
your foot
daughter's
is on
8
my
and she's already bringing
neck
it
and
home.
like
Yeah.
bet and like six that like there's all these different types of lingo and different like subcultures and communities and generations that are really fascinating and interesting. I always love learning new ones.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we've done an awesome job covering WSP. Is there anything else you want to add before we close it out?
Yeah, I mean, since you're going to give me a moment, I will say
Absolutely.
this next year is going to be our 15th anniversary. So we've had almost
Wow.
3,000 vets go through the program. And every summer we are just slammed from May through August at all these different campuses, hopping around doing the boot camps. Like I said, the applications are open now. So if you go to Warrior Dash, or as we say in the military, TAC, scholar.org, you can go and apply and learn about us and learn about the people who have donated and the central team, including myself. You can read quotes from alums. You can learn about what fellows do. It's just a really great website. It's very comprehensive. And this is a program that is genuinely near and dear to my heart. I am an alumna. I was a fellow, and then I came back to work here full time after a stint in private equity where I realized I didn't feel that sense of purpose and calling every day that I wanted to feel. And I feel like sharing this journey with other veterans is my calling. And I want to keep this mission going as long as possible. So I encourage you to check it out. We also do have other types of programming that are incredible, including like the Veterans College Success Kit. If you want to go online, it's like a mini one of our week-long programs, just in a quick little kind of online course. You can take little on-demand classes. It's pretty neat. It's free. We also have college success workshops that we do at community colleges. We've got a career pathways initiative where our alums can learn more about careers as part of a cohort. Like we are expanding our programming, but it's all to really serve that this alumni group who have gone through the initial programming, and our boot camps are our bread and butter, and they are just the coolest week you could ever spend, like what we've been doing today, right? Sam is just
Yeah.
talking together and about new things and asking questions and exploring ideas. It's just like that, but in an academic setting with a more of a room full of fellow veterans who want to learn and professors who have learned, and it's just really freaking cool. So I recommend to anyone who's even curious, check it out and don't be afraid. Just be brave and have faith in yourself, and don't be self-defeating with that imposter syndrome. Everybody's got it, but you're worthy of being in whatever space you are willing to work to be in and put the effort in. That's my last plug.
Perfect. Fantastic. We're going to close it out for this interview regarding WSP. And then for some of you, it will be weeks. For us, it will be minutes. And we'll go into Katie's veteran interview. So thank you, Katie, for joining us. And we'll see you in a minute, or for some
Thanks so much
people,
for
two
having
weeks.
me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We thank you for listening, and we hope you got something helpful out of this.
Right now, the best way to support us is to simply spread the word. If you know a fellow veteran who could use some resources to elevate their life, send them our way.
Until next time, remember to check your zeros, fives, tens, and 25s.